Hey, in this class we're going to look at simplifying fractions. So the only thing you need to know is how to find an equivalent fraction. And what that means is, I'm going to write it here, but let's say I had 1 over 2. A very, very common example of a fraction. We know that if we multiply the denominator and the numerator by some number, we get the exact same fraction that just looks different. So this would be 1 times 2, which is 2, and 2 times 2, which is 4. So now we know that 1 over 2 is the exact same as 2 over 4. And let's actually draw circles with this. Let's say I'm going to draw pizzas. So for the first one, I'm going to draw a circle pizza. I'm going to cut it in half into 2 pieces because the denominator is 2. So I'm going to cut it into 2 pieces and I'm going to eat one of them because 1 is the numerator, so I'm going to eat 1/2 of this pizza. In the second example, I'm going to draw the exact same pizza, but this time, instead of cutting it into 2 pieces, I'm going to cut it into 4 pieces. So this will give me something that looks like this. And now from here, this time, instead of eating 1 piece, I'm going to eat 2 pieces. So I'm going to shade in one and then shade in the other. As you can see, we are basically eating this side of the pizza no matter what, because these are equivalent fractions. Simplifying fractions is the exact same, but the opposite. So instead of finding a fraction that is bigger, in this case we multiplied by 2 in the numerator and denominator, we can do the opposite. So we can actually divide by 2 to get 1 over 2. We are going back, but this is assuming we did not know the first half of this question. So if I did not give you this part, if I said simplify 2 over 4, you would notice, okay, 2 is a common factor of both 2 and 4. So let's divide by 2 for the numerator and denominator, and then you get 1 over 2 as your answer. So this part in orange is called simplifying because you are getting the same fraction, but it just looks better. It looks smaller and it's easier to work with because you have smaller numbers. And now you can imagine if you're trying to multiply fractions with this one, with 1 over 2, it's going to be a lot easier than multiplying the same fractions with 2 over 4. So that's simplifying fractions in a nutshell. But once again, you're just getting the exact same fraction with the exact same value of the fraction, but just small numbers that look bigger. Something else you need to know is how to simplify and get a whole number as your answer. So for example, let's say I gave you 8 over 4, another very common example. First you could say, okay, 8 and 4 both have, so I'm going to write here, 8 and 4 have a common factor. I'm going to rewrite the 8 actually, but yeah, 8 and 4 have a common factor of 4. What that tells us is that we can divide both of them by 4 like this, and then 8 divided by 4 is 2, 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now we know the simplification to this is 2 over 1, but we're not done yet this time, because we know that any number over 1 is the number itself. What this means is, I'm going to write it here, but 2 over 1 is the exact same as 2 divided by 1, which is equal to 2, because any number divided by 1 is the same number. We changed nothing. So we got a whole number here, and that's our answer. But if you get a whole number, that means since all of these, everything we wrote here is equal. And if you got a whole number at the end, it means that you could have had a whole number at the beginning. And that is correct, because since we know divisions are multiplications, 8 over 4 is the exact same as 8 divided by 4, which is equal to 2. So we got the same answer no matter what, but in this step, like in the orange way over here, we got it in one line, one step, but in the red and blue, we had to do it like 2 or 3 times to get the same answer. Both of them work, and obviously it's better to do it in one way, but if you can't see the solution, once you see the question, it's fine to do it in multiple steps as long as you get the right answer. So getting the right answer is what we care about. Doing it in the least number of steps is good, but it's not necessary. We don't really care too much about it. Something else you might see is, let's say, big numbers. Like big, let's say 128 over 256. This is another very common example of something you might get probably like a grade 3 question. But how this works is that first you have to notice they're both even numbers. Because obviously, you're not supposed to be able to tell all the factors of 128 and 256 once you see the question. They're a lot more difficult than you would actually find out or think of them to be. So what you can first notice is that they are both even numbers. Since 6 and 8 are even numbers, that means we can divide both of them by 2. That's the first step you should always check for. Check if they're both even numbers, and if there are, your first thought should be dividing by 2. That's the easiest step someone can take. So now you might ask, okay, what is 128 divided by 2? It's 64. And then, what is 256 divided by 2? That's 128. Okay, we're not done yet because they are even numbers again. 64 and 128 are even, so let's divide by 2 one more time. This time we get 64 divided by 2 is 32, and then 128 divided by 2 is 64. Okay, they're even numbers again, so let's keep going. So divide this by 2, divide this by 2, we get 16 over 32. Okay, we're still not done. These are both even numbers once again. Let's divide it by 2 one more time like this. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. I'm going to rewrite that. So 8. And then 32 divided by 2 is 16. Okay, we're not done once again. 16 and 8 are both even numbers. Let's divide it by 2 again. So like this. We would get 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 16 divided by 2 is 8. Okay, we're still not done. Let's divide by 2 again because they're both even numbers once again. So we would get 2 over 4. And then, okay, they're still both even numbers. Let's do that again. So we would get divided by 2 over here like this. We would get 1 over 2. And now we can stop, because if you ever have a 1 in either the numerator or denominator, it means that you fully simplified the question and you cannot divide it by anything else. Because 1 is the smallest whole number that you can get on a fraction. So once you have a 1 in the numerator or denominator, you know you are done. So that's that. But if you got 1 over 2 after all these steps, let's count them. We hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We did 7 steps to get the answer of 1 over 2. That's fine, but you could have also noticed from the beginning that both of these numbers were divisible by 128. So 128 over 256, if you divide the top and bottom by 128 like this, so divided by 128 and divided by 128, we would have known that 128 divided by 128 is 1. And then 256 divided by 128 is 2. So we got the same answer in exactly one step. Once again, the speed or how many steps you take does not matter. Obviously, this is better because it takes less steps and you just save time. But this is completely valid because finding this step as like a 3rd or 4th grade student or whatever is a lot harder than you think. So this is completely valid, but obviously this is better. But both solutions are correct. You get full marks on both solutions if you were asked this on a test. So that is it. Let's move on to actual examples now. Okay, for question number 1, we have 10 over 12. First off, I can notice that they're both even numbers. Once again, that should always be your first thought. Look at both the numerator and denominator. If they are both even numbers, that means you can already divide both of them by 2 like this. That should always be your first thought, and that should always be the first thing you are looking for. And now, if you divide 10 by 2, you get 5. And then if you divide 12 by 2, you get 6. And if you think about it a bit more, is there any other number that you can divide 5 and 6 by to get something that's different? No, that's it. We are done simplifying because 5 is a prime number, which means that the only factors of 5 are 1 and 5. And then for 6, the factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6. So once again, if you have no other common factors other than 1, because 1 we don't usually consider it that much, to be honest, but if you don't have any other common factors, you're done. So that's it. And 5 over 6 is the least we can make this fraction look like. And we're done. Another thing you might have noticed is that if one of these numbers is 1 less than the other number, let's say, for example, 3 over 4, 7 over 8, 9 over 8. So all these numbers are like 1 minus something else. So 4 minus 1 is 3, 8 minus 1 is 7, 9 minus 1 is 8. If it's always a difference of 1, that means these are already simplified. There's nothing else you can do because there is no factor that you can divide by to get a small number. It's only one difference. So that's a kind of a cool way to kind of see if you're already done before you can start in the question. Because all of these are signs that you're done. So always check for them in a quick way before you start a question. But yeah, so that's question number 1. Pretty simple. We can stop at 5 over 6. 7 over 21. Okay, let's try this again. We can first notice that 7 and 21 are not even numbers. So dividing by 2 will not work. Let's try something else. Let's try dividing both of them by 7. So divide by 7, divide by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 21 divided by 7 is 3. And we are done, because since the numerator is a 1, there's nothing you can divide 1 by to get a number that's less than 1. So that's it. 1 over 3 is the simplest form of this fraction. 4 over 3, let's do this one again. So they are both even numbers. So first thing we can do is divide by 2. That is always the first thing you should always look for. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Okay, are we done yet? Let's check. Are 2 and 8, do they have any common factors? First, I noticed that they're both even numbers, so let's divide by 2. Let's ignore everything else and divide by 2 like this. Okay, then you might say, okay, what is 2 divided by 2? That's 1. And then what is 8 divided by 2? That is 4. Since there is a 1 in the numerator, we are done, because you cannot get a number that is smaller than 1. So that's it, we have the simplest form. But okay, this took us 2 steps. If you notice from the beginning that you could have divided 4 over 16 by 4, like this. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So you get the same answer no matter what. Once again, no answer is better than the other. They're both correct. But the second solution is technically faster, so it might be something that you like, but it's fine if you don't see it as you see the question, because it's a bit more difficult. So that's question number 3. Question number 4. Okay, so let's try this one again. Are they both even numbers? The answer is no. Okay, so we cannot divide by 2. That's the first step that we have to notice. We cannot divide by 2 since they're both not even numbers. Okay, let's check the other step. 3 and 6. Do they have any common factor? The factors of 3 are 1 and 3. The factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6. Do they have any common factors other than 1? Because once again, we don't usually divide by 1. So yes, they have a 3. That means you can divide the top and bottom by 3. So 3 divided by 3, that gives you 1. 6 divided by 3, that gives you 2. And you have the simplest form of this fraction. Once again, we write the factors of a fraction to kind of find the answer in a faster way if you can't really notice anything once you look at the question. But they both should get the same answer, and sometimes writing the factors actually helps to check your answer, because you could have thought, okay, 3 over 6 is the simplest form, but then it's actually not because you're wrong, but you would have had no way to check it without writing down all the factors. So a good idea is to write down the factors, see if there's anything in common. If there's nothing, you're done. If there is something, then you're not done. But yeah, so that's question number 4. Okay, question number 5. First thing you can notice is that they are both even numbers, once again. So first thing we should do is divide by 2. Divide top and bottom by 2 because they're both even numbers. 32 divided by 2 is 16. 64 divided by 2 is 32. Okay, let's do it again because 16 and 32 are both even numbers. So let's divide top and bottom by 2. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. 32 divided by 2 is 16. So now, before we keep going, okay, you might notice they are both even numbers, but you also might notice that they are both multiples of 8. The factors of 8 are 1 and 8. The factors of, so this is 8, and then factors of 16 are 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. A common factor of both is 8. That means you could already divide by 8 like this, and you don't have to keep dividing by 2, even though if you don't notice this, we could have also divided by 2 many more times to get the answer we are going to get right now, but it's not necessary if you already notice the shortcut. So 8 divided by 8 is 1, 16 divided by 2 is, 16 divided by 8 is 2. So we are done, and that is your answer. Once again, if you might notice that from the first step, you could have actually divided 32 over 64 by 32 in the numerator and the denominator like this, and you would have had 1 over 2. You get the same answer no matter what, once again, but it's always good to check your answer and go as slow as you want to get the right answer. Okay, question number 6. We can already tell that both of these are multiples of 7 because they have a 7 and 7t. We know that 7t is 7 times 10, so this one is a bit more obvious. But yeah, so divide top and bottom by 7. We get that 7 divided by 7 is 1. 7t divided by 7 is 10. So that's it. We are done this question. Question number 7, 81 and 9. So This might take a bit of thinking, but you might say, okay, they are both divisible by 3. Let's try that. So divide both of them by 3. 81 divided by 3 is 27. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Okay, are we done yet? No, because they are both divisible by 3 again. So let's do that. Divide top by 3 and divide the bottom by 3 as well. 27 divided by 3 is 9. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So you might ask now, okay, we have the 1 on the bottom, so we are done. You would be correct, but this is 9 over 1, which is the same as 9 divided by 1, which is 9. These are the exact same, but you always want to keep your answer as a whole number if you can. There's no point putting a 1 in the denominator since it does nothing. So always keep it as a whole number if you can. So this would be the preferred answer, but this is technically correct. But this is preferred. So that's that question. You could have also noticed, instead of dividing by 3 twice, like we did it here, we could have divided by 9 to begin with. So 81 over 9, divide the bottom by 9, and then divide the top by 9. 81 divided by 9 is 9. 9 divided by 9 is 1, so that's 9. Another way we could have done this, as you can see, there's a lot of ways to do this. It doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you get the right answer. You could have noticed that 81 over 9 is the exact same as a division, so which is 81 divided by 9. And you already know this. 81 divided by 9 is 9, so we are done. Once again, there are 3 ways of getting this, and there's also a bunch more. These are 3 ways I showed you how to get, but there's also an infinite amount of ways you could have done this. So as long as you get the right answer, which is 9, you are correct. It doesn't matter how you did it, as long as you get the right answer. But yeah, that's question number 7. Question number 8, same thing here. You could have noticed that 27 and 81 are both divisible by 3 or 9. So I'm going to say let's divide them both by 9 first. But you could divide them by 3 once again. It really depends on how you want to do it, but I'm going to do it the faster way. So 27 divided by 9 is 3. 81 divided by 9 is 9. Okay, turns out we're not done yet, because these are both divisible by 3 again. So divide by 3, divide by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So now we know that this is the correct answer, because there's a 1 on top, which means that we cannot get the numbers to be any smaller. So we are done. Another way you could have done this immediately is divide the fraction by 27 on the bottom and top. So 27 over 81, divide them both by 27, like this, and you would have had 1 over 3 no matter what, because that is the correct answer. Once again, as long as you're doing the right steps, you're going to get the right answer. You don't need to stress about that. Next question, question number 9, 64 over 128. You might have already noticed that we've seen this before, but let's do it the longer way so that if you don't notice it, it's fine. But yeah, so divide them both by 2 since they are both even numbers. 64 divided by 2 is 32. 128 divided by 2 is 64. Okay, let's divide them by 2 again. So divide by 2, because they're even numbers. 32 divided by 2 is 16. 64 divided by 2 is 32. And now, okay, you might notice they are both divisible by 16. So let's do that. Divide by 16, divide by 16, and you will get 1 over 2. And okay, we are done because there is a 1 in the numerator. So we are done. And by the way, there doesn't always have to be a 1 in the numerator. If it was, let's say, like 3 over 4 or 3 over 5, these are both actually as simple as you can get. So getting a 1 in the numerator is a sign of having the simplest form, but it's not always what you're going to get if you have the simplest form. These are both also correct for other questions that you might get. So that's a quick thing that could have needed clarification. But yeah, so 1 over 2 is the right answer, and we are done. But you could have noticed that for this question, we could have done this. So divide by 64 in the top and divide by 64 on the bottom. 64 divided by 64 is 1. 128 divided by 64 is 2. Once again, same answer no matter what you do, as long as you're doing the right steps. That's the one thing you have to worry about, doing the right things. Question number 10, last question. So I can already tell you that I can divide this by 256 like that because I've done this before. But let's say you didn't notice that. So let's do it the slower way. So they are both even numbers once again. So let's divide this by 2 and divide this by 2. 256 divided by 2 is 128. And then 1024 divided by 2 is 512. Okay, they're both even numbers again. So let's divide by 2 here and divide by 2 here. 128 divided by 2 is 64. 512 divided by 2 is 256. Okay, they're both even numbers once again, so let's divide by 2. This time we get 64 divided by 2 is 32, and then 256 divided by 2 is 128. Okay, they're both even numbers once again, so let's just keep going. We divide by 2 again, divide by 2 again, this would be 16 over 64. Okay, they're both even numbers again, let's keep going. So divide by 2, divide by 2, this will give us 8 over 32. Okay, at this point, you can keep dividing by 2 3 more times, but I can already tell that you can divide both of them by 8. So divided by 8, divided by 8. This will give you 1 over 4. And since we have a 1 on top, this is a sign that we have the simplest form, so we know we are done. 1 over 4 is the correct answer. And, like I said in the beginning, I noticed that you could have divided this by 256. So 256 over 1024, we could have done this, so divide by 256, and then divide by 256. This would have given you 1 over 1024 divided by 256 is 4. So 1 over 4, and we are done. Once again, same answer no matter what, just how fast you see the answer. But if you do this, it's correct. If you do this, it's correct. If you do this, it's correct. No matter what you do, as long as you're doing the right steps, it's correct. But yeah, so that's it for this question and this video. But that's it for simplifying. It's pretty easy. You just have to find an equivalent fraction that is smaller. So yeah, that's it.